It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we move into a Wednesday. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing good. How's everybody? Here we go, huh?
All right, yeah.
Everything is set?
It's all set.
Everything's set, ready to go? Oh, man, I'm telling you. Let's get to some audio first because, as you know, she picked Tim Walz. But let's go to CNN. Because the negative stuff, it's interesting that the negative stuff finally started today.
Yeah.
On the Kamala, because of that pick.
Mm-hmm.
But the negative stuff finally started. That's what I noticed. I'm like, oh, there's a lot more negativity today on the Harris. And it's ridiculous because Harris has a boatload of problems with where she stands on the issues, which is why she won't do any interviews.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But picking Walz and the anti-Semitism that has come up and is publicly talked about, that to me was really interesting.
Yeah.
How many, and I'm trying to find the Van Jones audio cut because he was the first one that came out with it early yesterday. Here it is, on the pick of Walz instead of Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. Oh, by the way, good morning, everybody.
Hello.
But here we go.
Do you think it was a little risky, though, Van, that she didn't go with Shapiro to kind of lock down Pennsylvania? I mean, yes, David Challing was saying earlier, just because you pick him as your running mate doesn't mean you automatically win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Hey, listen, the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were afraid of a Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define him. So here's the challenge you've got in this party. People don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it. On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building. And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard. But you also have anti-Semitism that has gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party? So that's going to have to get worked out. It's going to have to get talked through.
Now, the point I got to bring up is if Van Jones is saying that, I want to hear more from the Trump campaign. Now, I'll say this. J.D. Vance was on Sean Hannity last night and was very, very specific and gave the right answer. We don't play identity politics, and any politician that's chosen because of ethnicity, race, color of and color of skin is wrong. We don't do that. And he was very, very, very clear on it, and I thought that was really good because that should always be what the Republicans are talking about. But here you have it. I mean, Van Jones is as liberal as you can get. Remember, when he became part of the Obama administration, people said, my God, he's a socialist communist.
Oh, yeah.
People forget about Van Jones. He was viewed as radical left as you can get.
Yeah.
And he sees it, and what a great opportunity for the Republicans to get on the message that we've been saying for the last couple of weeks. The Democrats are the party of racism.
When Walz was announced yesterday morning, there was this elation that came from social media from the right. It was like, oh, my gosh, thank you. That was a gift. And it's just, in part, it's what Van Jones points out here. Mark Kelly, people were worried about, well, all right, Mark Kelly's going to be seen as somebody who is former military, NASA astronaut, Gabby Gifford's husband. All these things play emotionally in the spectrum, and then you look at as Shapiro. Shapiro was seen, everybody kept calling him a moderate. But the thing is that, no, he's on the left, and he's clearly a radical too. But when you get into Walz territory, wow. It was a gift. And J.D. Vance saying, I think it was before he was on Hannity, saying he can't wait. He can't wait to debate Walz. So now the table is set. And, it occurred to me that this is totally a Kamala pick. This is totally a Kamala pick. Because you think about it and you go, okay, wait a minute. She wasn't even 3 weeks ago. Nobody was chanting her name. And then all of a sudden she's it. And you think, well, the DNC, everybody else, they're going to rally around her and help her find the right pick. This is totally a Kamala pick. Walz is a radical. You get into the things in his state that he supports. He's a radical, full on. There's no way around it. You're not going to get away with I guess they think they are for a minute. The Midwesterner, this is, the Midwesterner versus the Midwesterner with J.D. Vance versus him. And it's like, no, not even close.
Well, you actually had an MSNBC. They had their political analyst. This is on MSNBC. Go through it yesterday morning and said, there's a problem here because they're trying to promote him as somebody who was this Midwestern guy, and he went and they went through.
Right.
This is on MSNBC.
Yes.
They went through all the specific rural areas where Trump has been gaining momentum and actually gaining momentum since 2016, and that's where Walz is losing, and that's what you need in order to get those battleground states. You need those rural areas, and he can't get them because it shows that even in the last election, he just lost big time. If you look, for example, at Minnesota and the last gubernatorial election, he won by 8 points, but you see it's basically Minneapolis and then everything else is red.
Yeah.
And it's like, he can't, and this is on MSNBC that he can't do it. Also, and I did post yesterday the definition of weird and put him on there because if remember, this is, the Democrats are the ones that came up and said J.D. Vance is weird. Mm-hmm. By the way, everybody hit Walz yesterday where he brought up the couch thing and said it really happened. That's completely. That was, from what I know, that was a Twitter post. Yeah. That talk. The thing is that J.D. Vance had sex with the couch.
Right.
Somebody made that up, and he actually brought it up and said that's true.
Right.
New York Times
Walz brought it up, trying to make it, and even the New York Times said, "No, it's false."
Yeah, it's completely false. And so when you look, two things hit me yesterday, and was Jessica Tarloff on Fox, not Fox and Friends. What is it? The one with Gutfeld.
The Five.
The Five, yes, The Five. And she said, well, Trump told people to use bleach, and they went nuts. That never happened.
Right.
That never. Think about this. The number one thing that Democrats use against Trump for being a racist is a lie.
Yeah.
Charlottesville.
Yeah.
And that brings up Michael Rappaport, the actor who went, I had to send you that. Wow. We can't play it on the air because he was cursing all over the place.
I don't think we could get through 2.5 seconds of it, but it's out there if you want to see it.
One of the headlines, Michael Rappaport, Josh Shapiro un-Jewed himself publicly and still didn't get picked. And we had talked about this, how he had changed completely his opinion on Israel.
Yeah.
And the fear from Republicans is you were going to get somebody, I'm a proud Jew and Israel is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though they could say, yeah, but you flip-flopped from the opinion that you have held since you wrote that essay in 1994.
Right.
You've always had one opinion. You just flip-flopped for this. Well, as you know, whether it's Van Jones or even on CNN, I'll play this here because you can hear Dana Bash go, oh, yeah, we talked about it, about the anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party.
Yep.
The Jew hatred is racism.
Right.
Whoopi found that out when she said it's not.
Right.
It's racism. Republicans, again, pound on the identity politics. Don't argue the way that they argue. Simply say, we don't care what your skin color is.
Right.
And J.D. Vance, by the way, did a great, I'll repeat it again, because he did a great job. I was critical of the president last week for falling into the trap, but J.D. Vance on Sean Hannity last night was right on exact point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, by the way, I did see one guy yesterday say, say, well, that's it. Since they picked Walz, I'm now going to vote for Trump. I'm like, what?
Really?
I burst out laughing.
That's what
that.
you were waiting for?
I know. I saw.
Seriously?
What's going on?
Wow.
But this is let's play this from Scott Jennings on CNN, and we'll play Scott Jennings and also Lee Zeldin pounding on it. Talking about weird.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
put that Facebook post out, or not Facebook, X post yesterday. Just put the definition of weird and Waltz, like screaming.
Uh-huh.
But if you look at where he stands, for example, as Lee Zeldin says later, he signed the legislation to ensure the tampons are in boys' restrooms. You want weird? That's weird. Yeah. Nobody really argued with him on it.
Right.
But here's Scott Jennings yesterday.
One of his friends told me this morning that his superpower is how normal he is.
Is he? I mean, I don't know. I don't know this guy. I mean, is it normal to let your biggest city in your state burn while you're the governor for 4 days, destroying thousands of businesses, hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage while you do nothing? Does that sound normal? Is it normal for your wife to say she opened the window so she could let the smell of tire fires waft in so they could take in the smells of this radical chaos and anarchy on the streets of Minneapolis? I don't view any of that as normal. I look at this through the lens of decision making. And in 2 cases, they've showed us who they are. Kamala Harris absolutely bowed down to the radical left in her party by not picking Shapiro, who is Jewish. There was a nasty campaign run against him. Everybody knows it. No one wants to admit it, but everybody knows it. And she
talked about that.
Did you hear? Say, we talked about that, which
Right.
they did. CNN
Yeah.
talked about the
Right.
anti-Semitism.
She was agreeing.
My point is, it seems that even Democrats are talking more about the racism in the Democratic Party than Republicans are.
Yeah.
Was this week 3 we've been on this? Okay, let's continue, though.
wound up choosing the person who was not Jewish and not as talented and not from the state that she has to win. He did a nice job tonight. Everybody can see why he was the best choice, but she couldn't do it because the party is somewhat awash in anti-Semitism. And for Walz, when he did what he did during the riots, to me, it was him saying, I don't have the strength or the character to stand up to this anarchy. So in 2 big decision points for this ticket, they've showed us they will always bow down to the radical left. So I think if you want to talk about normal, to the normal people in this country, bowing down to the radical left is not normal. It shouldn't be normal, and it should be a flashing red light to the normies of America that this is not
the normies.
Oh, we got to make that T-shirt. Normie.
Oh, the normies. Oh, my. Oh, so you had Van Jones saying it. Everybody knows it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The reason that CNN was bringing it up and the liberals were talking about it is everybody knows the Democrats are the racist party.
Yeah.
And the identity politics, they simply added Jew hatred.
Well, and the Democrats weren't counting on Walz. There was I think there was a surprise from the left. I think everybody was like, really? Because it was Shapiro, I think after the weekend and that post that Mark Kelly put out that was kind of vague, and then he deleted it and put up something else that kind of really pointed to him not being the pick. After that, it was really about Shapiro, like you said, about 24 hours ago. You know, you and I on, Monday afternoon. By Monday afternoon, Monday evening, you know, it was Shapiro. The name going around was Shapiro. And then by the time we came in here Monday night for the Tuesday show, it was Walz.
Yeah, I said, what happened?
Yeah.
I went to sleep with Shapiro and boom. And the interesting thing is it's Democrats. It's Democrats in the media now pointing out the racism in the Democratic Party.
Well, you know, the other thing, too, is the thing that came from Fetterman, the story, it didn't come from Fetterman. The story that was out there that Fetterman was issuing his concern that Shapiro shouldn't be the pick because he's in it for himself. And I thought, all right, let's balance that out a minute. Let's play with that for just a second. If that's true, that there was, this guy was going to make it all about him, Shapiro was good. There was no way Kamala Harris is going to stand for that because this is all about her now. She didn't have to work for one vote. She's here at the top of the ticket. And then all of a sudden, boom, Walz is the guy. Interesting thing to think about because it's in line with everything we've heard about her. She doesn't like the way things are going. She's, boom, throwing down the gauntlet at every turn. And I don't know. I can't tell you why she didn't pick Shapiro, but I have to wonder if that's the reason.
Pay attention to social media as now you see more liberals getting aboard. Even my input from the liberals coming up, and I just answered a guy a little while ago who said, I turned on the show yesterday, and had generalities but could not name one issue where we were wrong. Could not name one issue, did not name any issue as to why Kamala Harris should be president of the United States. Completely. And go on social media and look. I mean, all social media. Look at the people that talk about Kamala Harris and the Harris-Walz ticket and see where their specifics are. They're not there.
Right.
There's nothing there.
No.
There's like this rage and emotion, but they can't even articulate what it is.
Right.
I find that, and I sent it back to the guy. I said, wow, I can tell you disagree with me, but you don't even know how. And I said, that has to be frustrating. It has to be frustrating to be so angry, so passionately angry and supporting your candidate, but you cannot even articulate one position. Or when you disagree with us, you cannot articulate one position where we are actually wrong and be specific about it. It's generalities. You guys suck. Like, yeah. Well, that's fine, but
that's
why?
Just pure hate.
Yeah.
We know what that is.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. How much do you know about synthetic oil? Heavy-duty trucks have been running on traditional mineral oil for the last 100 years, but today's technology brings us other options to consider. Synthetic is better quality. Unlike conventional oil, synthetic oils have a consistent molecular structure, giving it the ability to support pressures from higher horsepower engines, especially at lower RPMs. It also allows oil to reduce friction in an engine, controlling temperatures and improving fuel economy. Lastly, they're cleaner. Synthetics pick up fewer contaminants as they do their job of lubrication. They also have a better oxidation stability, resulting in an overall cleaner engine.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Expect this ad. If it isn't out already, expect this ad with this quote from Tim Walz.
And I think seeing a plan that's out there, talking about it with folks, knowing that he's not going to do anything. He talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory. That's.
Yeah. Yep. That's going to be, there's so much gold that was handed to the Republican Party. Now they've got to get it together and use it. I think yesterday they started. I think it was a good start and a reaction. And knowing now what the makeup of the entire ticket is, man, there's a lot of stuff.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. More audio from last night. This again from CNN, and this is Lee Zeldin, who ran for governor of New York a few years ago, a Republican, but a contributor on CNN. He's always on there. Here's what he had to say.
He was talking about loving your neighbors. During COVID, he had a hotline to snitch on your neighbors. There was 10,000 of these complaints that were coming in. And I would say, as far as the weird argument, and keep throwing this weird around, I mean, he was signing legislation that was requiring taxpayer-funded distribution of tampons in boys' bathrooms in elementary schools. So if you want to go there, and we're going to start have a debate about weird, I mean, it's not like he has clean hands here. Again, I think at the end of the day, though, rather than going back and forth on what's weirder, I think we should just talk about who's going to solve the issues that voters say are their top issues for the future of this country.
You look, and we're very careful about wanting, especially in identity politics, to discuss it the way that Democrats do it. But if they make an accusation of like weird, they've made the accusation.
Yeah.
Well, then bring up things that get you the win. And what gets you the win is, J.D. Vance, weird. What does J.D. Vance talk about? J.D. Vance talks about the fact that people should get married and should have kids, and that's a better way and a more satisfying way to live, and should be a more satisfying way to live for most people.
It's also more productive for society.
Right, exactly. Yeah, more productive for society, exactly. That's viewed as weird. And so it's like, okay, fine. That's your definition of weird. Let's look at where the other vice presidential candidate stands. That's totally legit. He believes distribution of taxpayer money should go for tampons for boys in elementary schools. Mm-hmm. He believes that sexually explicit material should be available to children. He believes that children should be able to decide whether to cut off their private parts or not without the parents being involved in it. Yeah. He believes, he said it, that if you built a wall, he would put a ladder to help illegal immigrants get in the country. And that's just a start. We just touched a couple of things.
Right. Well, basically, and someone made the case, he's basically building a sanctuary state for the liberal transgender agenda.
Right. And so if you want to do it, and it was funny, what did he call it? What did Scott Jennings call it? Normalies or
normies?
Normies. Yeah. Normies. Yeah, people that are normal. Are you a normie?
Yeah.
Are you a normie?
Well, but there's the thing. Look, a radical can only their attempt is to appear normal, for their positions, what they believe, what they promote, to appear normal. So you have to point to the normal people. They're weird. I mean, it's as if, wow, look at that guy. Who wears a suit and tie to the office? I mean, it really is going out of your way to try and make something look not normal, to look weird when it's actually the opposite. And the idea would be, all right, you get people looking at it going, oh, okay, well, is that weird now? And the other side is normal? That's the attempt. But you don't get away with that. Our instincts kick in. And again, this is the radical left on these issues going after J.D. Vance or anyone who believes that is weird. But also, you're going after the parents. A lot of this is, of course, going to be focused at the opposition, at the Republican candidate and vice presidential candidate. That's the way it works. But they don't realize that they're taking on parents and families at every turn. One of the things you have to do, we said this about Trump, the rallies need to be short. You said it. You said it first. I don't know that anybody has said that. His speeches at the rallies need to be very concise. I said it yesterday. I think it bears repeating. There's no reason that you can't make your speeches on the road at every turn, as concise and to the point as your ads. Your advertising is pared down sometimes for time, if it's going to be on broadcast, television, or radio. But it's also about the attention span. You're going to have to get in there, and you're going to have to take a razor and trim the fat. Get concise with it, because this is not back in the Obama years, remember the whole thing on the cocktail socialist thing? They stand around talking about all these ideas. Well, if we just blah, blah, blah in a society, and in modern societies, and blah, 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 blah. All that is gone. This is not a cocktail socialism discussion anymore. It's reality. These are things that have happened. These are things that Tim Walz has done. These are things that the Biden-Harris administration have done and still are doing today. These are things that are happening at the moment. It is what's going on, not at the kitchen table anymore in those discussions. It is about everything going on outside the four walls of your home, in your neighborhood, where it's less secure, where the left calls for the defunding of the police while they fund terrorism around the world. This is the reality of today. And by the way, good luck with your back-to-school shopping.
Well, it's funny because I've seen a number of conservatives say even conservatives or Republicans say, well, that was a strong start. The standards are so low from the Democrats that if you can speak, if you can get through a sentence, that's viewed as the indication that you can win the election.
Yeah.
That's where we are right now. I'm reading John Paderitz here from the New York Post. It would be foolish for conservatives not to acknowledge that was a strong debut for Walz and will keep Democrats charged up. If right-wingers weren't so scared of Trump, they would do what they could do to get him to understand just how serious the challenge is to him. Now, the second part I agree with, the second part where he said Trump needs to understand how serious the challenge is, and as we have said, needs to focus and needs to make his rally speeches short, to the point. The 5 top issues out there.
Yep.
And you pound it over and over again what they've done. And you said it yesterday, and it was off the air, and we forgot to bring it up because it really impressed me when you said that Trump speaking has to be as direct and concise as the commercials are.
Yeah, actually, I said it on the air yesterday morning.
Did you say it on the air?
Just said it a moment ago.
Oh, okay, I didn't.
Yeah,
that's right.
It was in the 4 o'clock hour.
That's right. You said it on the air, and I wanted to come back to it, and we never came back to it.
Yeah,
that's
it was
what it was.
Right before the 4 a.m. Central.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay.
And we didn't expand on it, but really, there's not much to expand on there. Just the thought that those ads there's a reason you trim all the fat. You've got to get those points across. They run those things through focus groups like crazy. And your speeches need to mimic that process. I'm not saying you need to get it down to 3 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute. But you need to get it down to a very clean, lean package every single time.
Right.
And it's going to sound very repetitive. It's going to sound repetitive. And sometimes Eric and Gary sound repetitive. But I want them to win.
Well, you sound repetitive because they're using they don't have any argument for the top 5 issues, and so you keep bringing up the 5 issues and where they're wrong and how it's harmed our society. Because and I think one of the things that who brought it up a couple of weeks ago when it was Democrats aren't only weird, but they're harmful.
Yes.
The things that they promote are weird, but they're also harmful.
Yep.
And when you look, for example, at what they looked at J.D. Vance as, basically stating, which, by the way, in Catholicism and many religions, having a family is where you're supposed to go.
Yes.
That's viewed as producing a much more productive society. I had somebody write and say, well, who cares what somebody's individual choices are? And I went, the government does. The government hands out tax benefits based on certain behavior.
Yep.
And families are a part of it because families are viewed as a best way to produce a productive society. J.D. Vance was called weird for that.
Yeah, right.
Think about all the things that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris believe in that are not only weird, but harmful to society. Weird, and I don't care if you're a little bit weird. Who isn't weird? What's, the definition of weird can be quite expansive, but it comes down to what is harmful. Oh, Babylon B, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Josh Shapiro annoyed he got this Death to Israel neck tattoo for nothing. And it shows him there and on the side, Death to Israel on his neck. Oh, my God. That's just brutal. And Michael Rappaport, I can read this one. There's no profanity in this one, the actor. Tonight at the rally, they said, let's bring joy to politics. And boom, Cori Bush is done. I feel joy all of a sudden.
Yeah, there was a 5.3 earthquake out in Bakersfield, California, by the way, a little while before we went on the air. I think that was conservatives in Kern County jumping up and down and celebrating Cori Bush's loss. I could be wrong. Even though she's not in their state, it still was a victory of sorts. It is interesting, though, that Walz is the pick, and then on the same day that Cori Bush is out, then loses the primary. Ouch. It does get down to the very, very radical liberal agenda now. It does. There's no way around it. The liberal media is looking at it now going, here's your track record, here's what Walz is known for, and keep in mind, none of them were chanting Kamala's name just weeks ago. All this brand new, it's not euphoria. It's fake. It's like being at a child's birthday party. Look, you want the child to be happy, so you're clapping your hands and everything else, but you got to kind of conjure up that energy. And at least there's some joy in that. Right now, what they're doing in promoting Kamala Harris, there's zero joy, I guarantee you, on the left.
This election is simple. On the issues, by landslide numbers, people agree with the Republican Party and Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what, and the Democrats are trying to, well, not trying to, the Democrats are lying to you, but the problem that they have is, I have never seen an election of a ticket where there is so much audio in their own words that show that that a landslide number of Americans and probably over half of Democrats disagree with how radical the positions that both Walz and Kamala Harris have.
Right.
That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
And for the Democrats, it's simply semantics. The Republicans have the entire country, 70 to 80%. We went over the numbers a couple of weeks ago on all the issues on every single major issue, except abortion, which is 50-50. But if you take Walz or Harris in there, they want abortion up to birth.
Yeah.
That's not where America is.
No.
So that's 50-50 on that one. Everything else, it's landslide numbers on the issues where people agree with the Republicans and Trump.
Yeah.
On the economy, on inflation, on border, on the border, on national security, on funding the police.
Yep.
This is what we're seeing now is the most radical political ticket in American history.
Yes.
On the Democrat side.
Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here's more that they'll probably play from the Governor Walz.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Now, don't focus too hard on it, because when you ask the definition of socialism to young people, they don't know what it is.
Right. Yeah.
People still don't understand what socialism is.
Right.
What you do is you go directly on the issues. But again, where he says never, ever back off from where you are on your progressive issues. And I believe they're going to go forward with it, and that's going to hurt them badly as this continues.
Yeah. There's a ton of stuff now that the RNC and the campaign for Trump and any of the surrogates can use.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. Well, the race is all set. Interesting how even Democrats know about the anti-Semitism, and that's only going to go on for a couple of days because he is the vice presidential nominee, the running mate of Kamala Harris, but he is the vice president running mate. And so the focus still is going to be on Kamala Harris and Trump. That's where the focus is going to be. But you take advantage of it because when you have people like Van Jones, Dana Bash from CNN, both, as liberal as you can get, saying, anti-Semitism's a problem in the Democratic Party. That is gold for Republicans that they've never taken advantage of as much as they should have, because it all ties in, as we've said before, and I know we've repeated this over and over again, but it is an effective way to destroy the Democratic Party and what they believe in, because you simply say they've been practicing identity politics for the last 40 years. You saw it start with Justice Thomas, and then it went on to conservative black talk show hosts in the early 90s, and we've seen it. We've seen the racism and bigotry towards blacks that are conservative. And so the identity politics naturally led to where we are today, the racism of anti-Semitism and Jew hatred.
Yeah.
And that's where we are today, and everybody knows that's why Kamala Harris did not pick. Now, there are secondary reasons. For example, Yamiche Alcindor from PBS said, let me get this here. A source familiar with the vetting process said the things that ultimately made Governor Walz beat out Senator Mark Kelly were that Kelly was not seen as loyal enough to President Biden, both after his dismal debate performance and throughout his presidency on issues like immigration policy. Mm-hmm. So you can't even have Mark Kelly was out because he didn't publicly state he's for open borders like Biden is.
Right.
Is what the message is coming from them.
Right.
I have never seen covering politics professionally, you could say since the Reagan-Carter. When I wasn't in media the entire time, but Reagan-Carter, but going all the way back to remembering, my first political prediction. I would have been 7 years old. And it was the Kennedy-Nixon debate. And my mother, I don't remember it, but my mother told me that they watched the debate and, they thought Kennedy won and I thought Nixon won. So there began my political observation career.
And they made you go play out in the yard.
It's,
Yeah.
I do remember the TV being on. I do remember the debate night, but I don't remember telling my, but my mom always told me, yeah, she goes, great observation of politics you are. You thought Nixon won. It's like we always had fun over that one.
Right.
By the way, we're not going to debate that.
Yeah. Don't send us email on
Right.
that.
I'm not going to get into that debate, but I have never seen a ticket in my entire life as, number one, as radical as this one is.
Yeah.
And number two, where the ammunition of what both the presidential nominee and the vice presidential nominee of either party had so many damaging video and audio cuts about what they believe that landslide numbers of Americans, including in some cases majority of Democrats, disagree with their policy, and they're all on the major issues. It's not side issues, all on the major issues that I have never seen before.
Yeah.
Now, they're already using, we played one ad that didn't use any audio cuts, and it was, how radical, that the Trump campaign already came up with online, but they didn't use an audio cut, and you and I looked at each other and said, need to have an audio cut, need to have an audio cut, need to have an audio cut. If you're going to say radical, you and I both said in that, I think it was a 30-second ad, you and I both said they should have put in, and basically, if he builds the wall, I'm going to put a ladder so everybody can come in.
Yeah.
They needed to play something like that, because that's only like a 4 or 5 second audio cut.
Right.
And you play that. But they did in another campaign ad that came out last night, they did put this together using J.D. Vance and what he had to say at a rally, I believe it was last night, and then they were playing a ton of audio of Minneapolis burning. You ready? Here we go.
Tim Walz was the guy who let rioters burn down Minneapolis, and then Kamala Harris was the one who bailed the rioters out of jail.
We are seeing such damage and destruction throughout Minneapolis and St. Paul.
They're going to want fundamental change. That's one of the exciting things in the midst of all this.
Things have gotten so out of control, it is hard to understand.
We can see the plume of smoke drifting towards downtown Minneapolis.
We are asking the governor, we're asking Mayor Fry, what is the plan here?
On Wednesday, around 6 p.m., I called the governor and asked for the National Guard.
What are we going to do and how are we going to use them?
It is definitely not a safe situation for anyone.
We've seen protesters attacking police, defacing buildings, and looting from businesses.
The place is completely trashed.
People are scared, and people are angry, and people want to hear from their governor.
The few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail.
She encouraged her followers to support the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which is a group that bailed out rioters. Some of those rioters even attacked police officers.
The 3rd precinct of the Minneapolis Police Department on fire. Nearby businesses ablaze.
Airing information citywide, the 3rd precinct has been compromised.
Many of the officers who were there that night sent final text messages to loved ones in case they didn't make it out alive.
I mean, this is an abject failure. I just don't think there's any other way to put it. I mean, is anything going to happen here? We're just going to let this burn.
There it is, and then Trump Vance, Make America Great Again underneath it, 2024.
It's a great ad. People they often live in the bubble of today. They're not thinking about these things. They don't catalog them like a lot of us wonks do. They're not going through their day saying, remember everything that happened during those riots and playing that out. Maybe locally, certainly locally, they're not forgetting about it, but a lot of people move on and they just don't think about those things. These ads are effective and they bring back, again, the current policy of a governor and also the current policies of the Biden-Harris administration. These are not cocktail socialist discussions where they're standing around going, well, I think it is now the reality. And bringing Tim Walz onto the ticket was a gift, I think, to the Republicans if they know how to unwrap a gift.
Well, I think the one phrase that they came out is a phrase that somebody's going to use in the debate. Tim Walz allowed rioters to burn Minneapolis to the ground. Kamala Harris bailed the few that were arrested out of jail.
Right.
That's a very effective line.
Huge.
That was a very effective line.
And one right after the other. I mean, it was
Right.
they were very close in the ad. And that is something, again, these reminders of it, because a lot of people maybe weren't even paying attention then. If you're not in that area, you weren't paying attention to the details as to what was going on in the peripheral and behind the scenes. You see it on the news, and it's like, oh, man, glad I don't live there if you don't live there. And you kind of move on about your day. So these things are not just reminders for people who might have known about them back then. They're also a learning moment for a series of learning moments for people who didn't know these things. And reality is on your side. The truth is on your side. It's the ad building. Honestly, I don't know how many different ads you can make now. Using them in their own words. You said during the break, we were listening to one of the ads, and you said, and you're right, that there needed to be an audio cut in there. There needs to be, they use them in their own words because, number one, some people don't believe you, and even if they do, don't go on that. You have to give them, you have to back it up. This is what they said. This is how they think. I don't know how long Kamala Harris can get away with not doing sit-down interviews, not addressing as a sitting vice president, and now the nominee. How long she can get away with it? Maybe it's all the way through November 5th that she doesn't even talk to the media. But the fact of the matter is, and here's the problem with that, by the way, I thought of this the other day, is that, well, now you're building curiosity as to why you're not answering questions. The media's going to get antsy. They're wondering why you're not helping them promote you. It's just like the talking points from the Biden administration. Why aren't you giving us talking points every day? And they're bewildered as to why you're not giving them talking points from the campaign in terms and a one-on-one interview every once in a while, or at least answering a few questions along the way. But there's that, and there's also the curiosity that builds with the rank and file of, okay, what do you plan to do about this? What do you plan to do about this?
You can tie it all in together. I'm going to play this audio cut from yesterday. This is Karine Jean-Pierre, to go into what you just said about Kamala Harris, because I would tie the two in. Biden won't talk, Kamala won't talk. But here it is right here, because this is the frustration that you see even from the liberal media out there.
Israel could be under attack any moment from Iran. U.S. troops in Iraq were injured yesterday. Why have we not heard directly from President Biden this week? We know he met with his team yesterday. Yep. We know today's VP Harris's big day, but he's still the president. Where is he?
Well, here's the thing. You have seen the president. He has been very clear about making sure that we continue.
Okay, we can just stop it right there. You've seen the president.
Yeah.
That if there's a picture of him, that's enough.
Right.
I mean, that has wearing so thin. But what you do is you say, like Biden, like Harris, neither will communicate with the American public where they really stand, because they know it's where they stand is so radical, as Kamala Harris has said in the past. And then, boom, you hit the audio cuts.
Right.
Again, I think one of the reasons that she picked Walz is because he's going to be the one that's going to be out there promoting stuff.
Yeah.
I think they believe that he is better than she is, but the fact is, on the positions the Republicans have laid out, and even the conservative media have laid out his positions that are so incredibly radical, it'll be very tough for him to do any type of interview, even on CNN. Maybe MSNBC will kiss his posterior, but even on CNN, he's going to get questioned.
Yeah.
And he can't answer those questions. He cannot answer what he believes. Now, maybe he will, because he said, and the one, progressives shouldn't back off at all. Well, then fine.
Right.
Back up the point that minors should be able to cut off their private parts without parents' permission. Even with parents' permission, that it's wrong. But the fact is, that's where they even took it to the very, very weird and harmful category, which is the fact that children should make these decisions.
Right.
He's for sexually explicit material for young children. He's for tampons for boys. These are the things that you bring up and pound on, and then you pound on all the other things. You pound on his response, your lack of response to the Minneapolis riots. And you hit everything, defund the police. You hit everything, all the radical things that he is about. Now, the whole swift boating thing of him for his military career, I don't believe that will last long. But the more that he stays in the public eye as the one who's going to be the talker, if that's the way they decide to go, and I sense that may be the case, that this is a guy that's going to promote what we believe because Kamala Harris can't. And if somebody says, well, why isn't Kamala speaking? It's like, well, she is. You know, Tim's doing all. Tim's the one explaining what she believes.
Right. Yeah.
So you're out there. You know what they believe because he's out there explaining it.
Right.
And I believe that that's what they will do. But he is so radical that I don't see how he comes. Is he going to come around and say, I'm pro-fracking, we're pro-fracking?
Well, either that or he's going to have to differ from Kamala Harris because she's trying to have her campaigns wants to make people believe she's pro-fracking now.
Right. You said that you would put a ladder to if there was a wall for illegal immigrants to come over. Are you now backtracking on that because you're the vice presidential nominee of a president who has reversed what they were saying what she was saying just a week and a half ago?
How does the border czar feel about your position?
Right.
I mean, look, we're just on day one. We're just on day one. This thing is a cakewalk. It built itself. But you're right. Putting him out there at the rallies and watching last night, you can tell she's looking over his shoulder. You know, she's got that big smile on her face because she's realizing, I finally got relief now. Yeah, he's the relief pitcher, no doubt.
Right, but then does it come in the fact that Kamala Harris doesn't have the ability, so she has a white man speaking for
white
her?
male, yeah. Exactly. Another old white guy.
Oh, got to throw straight in there, too.
Yeah.
By the way, we only say that because it's the Democrats that practice that identity politics, but I'm talking about the liberal media.
Yep.
Since they practice the identity politics, will say, oh, my gosh, he seems to have the position of power in explaining everything she's going to do if they decide to go that way.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Smart owner-operators make every single week as profitable as possible. One trip is not enough time to be considered profitable or unprofitable, and an entire month may be too much time to manage. 1 week is the right amount of time to deal with efficiently. To do so, look at the advantages and disadvantages of every day of the week. Match trip length to the optimum day of the week. Plan to deliver on the day you have the best opportunity of getting a load. Your personal weekly plan will vary depending on the weekly delivery flow cycle of your region, typical length of haul, personal requirements, and other factors. What's important is to have a specific weekly plan that helps you be successful. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. See what Ben Stiller? They had another virtual Harris fundraiser.
Yeah,
every Jewish guy wishes he was black. That's the obsession that these people have with identity.
I don't get that at all.
I mean, it is such great there's such great material that Republicans can use there to, for once and all, end forever the fact that it's a Republican Party that is racist.
Yeah, right.
There's so much. I mean, yesterday, the Democrats talking about the pick of Walz and Shapiro changing his mind on Israel. I mean, there's so much. I mean, that's red political meat. And that's why we've been so passionate the last 3 weeks and talking about the fact Republicans need to be blunt and say Democrats are racist and it's mainstream with identity politics and now anti-Semitism and Jew hatred.
Yep.
This isn't that hard.
It's right there. It's every day.
Links to everything Red Eye on the website, redeyeradioshow.com.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I mean, just a trove, Eric, of audio and video out there. And we're just, again, a few hours into this.
Yeah.
And now that both parties' nominees are all set, I mean, they had nothing. You think about it, they had nothing like this on J.D. Vance.
No.
Nothing.
No.
They had the one statement from years ago. But here's Walz again.
Something I'll never get tired of saying, I think all of you, Congresswoman Omar, wonderful. Doesn't that sound? When I'm having a tough day or I'm out on about mile 5 of my run and I'm feeling kind of down and the world's pressing on me, I think Ilhan Omar's a congresswoman, and it just brightens you up. So thank you.
Wow. Play the daylights out of that. You know, it's one thing because the breakdown of, and we were talking about it earlier, the breakdown of his support in his own state. And you get out to the more rural areas and that support drops dramatically. But then you get outside the state. They live in a blue bubble as governors. They live in the blue bubble of their state if you're a Democrat. We talked about this with Newsom. And Newsom had never been on the big stage. And Walz hasn't been either. Even as a governor, he hasn't been on the big stage. And now he's on the ticket. And they don't, living in that blue bubble, you know, I mean, seriously, who says that? Oh, man, when my day's going bad, I'm just remind myself Ilhan Omar is, for me, it's quite the opposite. Like, man, if I'm having a really good day and I really want to tank it, I remind myself that Ilhan Omar's a lawmaker. This is exactly what we talk about in that blue bubble moment. They're looking around. You know, he's in a crowd of friendlies. They're clapping. Yay, yay. I mean, it's, you know, he's pandering here. But the fact of the matter is, you don't get that wide support nationally. You just don't. And I think it's very clear, and it's also telling. I think it's so interesting that it was announced that Walz is the VP pick for Kamala Harris. And now you see the radicals and, you know, one more of the squad falling. That's 2 that are down. Radicals being rejected. It's not across the board. Radicals are still going to be around. They're going to be around for a long time. They're certainly going to be around for the rest of my lifetime if they don't grow in numbers, in fact. But America on the issues absolutely is not aligned with the radicals. And it gets down to the personality thing. They're going to try and make him look like a normal Midwesterner and, hey, look at this guy. What's interesting is, and you pointed out too, and I really think, because I was thinking the same thing, I really think it's also about, and quite frankly, any of them could have been greater speakers than she is, but really they love the fact that he can go out there and he can get on the mic and he can do all the heavy lifting on the mic, but that's not a good thing for them, because eventually they're going to have to talk about and promote the things they believe and the policies for Walz as governor and the policies for Kamala Harris as the vice president for Biden and would be president if she won.
This was, and I saw Britt Hume had posted this from Powerline, John Hinderaker, about its Walz and what to expect here on one line of attacks from the Republicans. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will be Kamala Harris's running mate. I think it was a process of elimination. Mark Kelly seemed like a strong candidate until it came out that he invested in a spy satellite company with the Chinese. And also, if we look at the PBS commentary, they believe it's because he's not as open borders as Biden was.
Right.
And as Kamala Harris is. But he writes here, I think Kamala Harris had every intention of selecting Josh Shapiro. The fact that the announcement will be made in Philadelphia certainly pointed in that direction. But at the 11th hour, helped by an essay Shapiro wrote when he was in college, the anti-Semites blocked him. So who was left? Tim Walz. As an American, I'm horrified at Walz's selection. He is a small-minded, mean-spirited man. In one way, he will fit in with the Harris ticket. He ran a basement campaign for re-election in 2022, refusing to show up for debates with Republican Scott Jensen after the first one went badly. So Jensen was left debating an empty chair. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Walz's character defects are considerable, but let's leave it at this. He was largely responsible for the George Floyd riots that devastated Minneapolis and other cities because he dithered for days rather than calling out the National Guard. By his own admission, he held off out of sympathy for the rioters' cause. We are still living with the consequences. Walz has a terrible record as governor, but this post sums it up. Under Walz, Minnesota became a high-crime state for the first time ever, and goes through all the different FBI crime statistics showing from 2010, all the way, over the last few years. And you see that the U.S. rate has come way down. And in Minnesota, the rate since 2018 has continued to go up until 2022. And then they also have, under Walz, per capita GDP in Minnesota fell below the national average for the first time ever. Under Walz, student achievement tumbled even as spending on schools skyrocketed.
Yeah.
They've got all the graphs here, the sources, FBI, Minnesota Department of Education. And under Walz, increases in energy costs have far outstripped the national average. Under Walz, Minnesota has joined New York and California and Illinois as a state that people of all ages are fleeing. This is Walz's record. It is every bit as bad as Joe Biden's and Kamala Harris's, possibly worse. He is a far-left ideologue whose character includes not one redeeming quality. As an American, I'm horrified at the thought of him being so close to the seat of power. But they go through all of it. If you look at it, you can make the case Minnesota is becoming California.
Yeah.
Republicans can make that case based on, the graphs here, which all come from legitimate organizations, FBI, Census Bureau, just everything there. They can make that case.
Yep.
So I'll say this again because I have the answer. I'm going to be asked wherever I go now, well, what do you think about the race? What do you think? Here's what I think. And it's very simple. On every major issue of concern to the American public, it's landslide number for the Republicans and Trump. On the issues. And America knows it already if you just look at the CBS poll. America already knows it.
Yep.
We brought it to you earlier this week. People believe that Kamala Harris is Biden and believes the same things as Biden. On the economy and the border, landslide numbers for Trump.
Yep.
That's where we stand right now. If you ask me, well, then why is she leading in the polls? I would have to tell you, I don't know. I can just tell you for a fact, though, that the public on the issues by landslide numbers agrees with the Republicans and Trump what he wishes to do over what the Democrats wish to do.
Yeah, we see it.
And what do you mean you don't know about the polls? Well, I don't know. It could be just because she's new. She hasn't been vetted enough. Who knows? It's not Biden, which created some excitement in Democrats. RFK Jr. has completely fizzled out.
Yep.
I was trying to find a bear joke in there somewhere, but he's fizzled out completely, and I believe that the majority of votes that you have seen that has dropped in the last couple of weeks have gone to Harris.
Well, I think that's what's been going on before the bear story came out, even, and we talked about that the other day. But it's basically people now aligning, as they always do, more with the two major parties and a point or two here and there for these other candidates. That's just the way it always plays out, with very few exceptions. We can go back to Ross Perot, but even then, Ross Perot jumping out of the race was the worst thing that he did. Out of any third-party candidate, he had the greatest potential in modern years. And now you don't see that. You weren't going to see it for RFK Jr. Early polls don't mean anything. People start getting down to business, and then they start measuring that. And we said he's taking from Democrats more than he is Republicans. And I think her surge, anything that she's gotten, has been any Democrats coming off the line in terms of the polls, but also him and his numbers tanking again, even before the bear story.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And so this is
the bear was the nail in his political
It
coffin.
really was. Yeah. I mean, seriously. I fully expected him to go, and you know what, Roseanne? While I'm at it, I'm withdrawing from the race. I'm done. I just realized how bizarre this whole thing is. But it really is now very clear. But it's been clear to us for a long time. And Democrats still win elections. You have things going wrong, so many things going wrong in these blue states, yet Democrats still control those states. So, yeah, by all means, Trump should win with no problem, and it really should be landslide based on the issues, if that's how people vote.
Well, I mean, that's what the race is about right now.
Yep.
The race is the majority of Americans, even you could say in many issues a plurality, and in some cases, on some of the polling numbers, the majority of Democrats agree.
Yeah.
We went through the CBS thing. 14 of the out of was it 20 different points I brought up. 14, 80% or over agreed with the Republicans.
Right.
And Trump. Then 2, I think 4 was between let me see. It was 18 different ones, because then 4 was between 70 and 80%, and then 2 of the issues were over 60%, including 65% that believed we should have mass deportation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm taking that mass
Right.
deportation about how fed up people are
Right.
with that, because
Right.
you would have never had that 10 years ago.
Right.
And so when you look at where the people stand right now on all the major issues, they agree with Trump.
Yep.
And the difference is, if you want to go back to 2012, that we look at the exit polling that showed that the majority of people agreed on the issues with Romney, yet he lost to Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Obama was an incumbent and also those issues had not yet hit reality. All these issues have hit reality.
Yep, that's what's different. Yep, we're not any longer having the cocktail discussion, whether it's socialism or
hypothetical,
anything
a hypothetical
else.
discussion.
All of those conversations now are behind us because everybody's dealing with all the issues in real time.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So we'll have more audio coming up here. Still the concern about anti-Semitism, that's coming from liberals of the Democratic Party. And again, we'll say it again, Republican Party, why can't you attack the Democrats on their racism? Why can't you do it? What is the problem?
Yeah.
We know that there's somebody listening on our great affiliate WMAL that has power in Washington, and on the Republican side. Please ask that question for us. We sit out here every day where you've got something handed to you on a platter, and you seem like it doesn't exist, and you can destroy them. And you should have been doing this years ago on their racism, their bigotry, their anti-Semitism, their hatred of Jewish people. It's absolutely blunt who the racists are, and the Republican Party, we don't know where to go on this.
At least J.D. Vance hit it last night on Hannity.
No, he did. J.D. Vance did hit it. Yes.
This is what you have to do. You've been given another gift, by the way, in Tim Walz. Use it.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
Welcome to the Red Eye Radio multiverse.
By the way, I just love this in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
About Kamala Harris. She went with Mr. Walz instead, and there goes Mr. Trump's hope of flipping the decisive swing state of Minnesota. Then they write, that's a joke, since the land of 10,000 liberals has voted Democratic in every presidential election since 1976.
Yeah.
His progressive bona fides will please Senator Bernie Sanders and the teachers' unions, but his governing record will be fodder for Mr. Trump, and picking him is a bad omen about the ability or even willingness of Harris to defy her party's left. And they go through the problems that the Republicans are going to exploit, increasing taxes. He increased taxes in Minnesota. Minnesota, one of the rare states that still levies a death tax up to 16%, a state death tax. 81,000 illegal immigrants in the state were made eligible for driver's licenses along with health insurance under his leadership. Funding for the North Star program, which provides free college for students, included illegal immigrants. Mandating the public utilities generate 80% carbon-free electricity by 2030, ramping up to 100% by 2040. He's a fervent believer in climate action. How will that come across with not necessarily Kamala Harris's opinion, but the campaign's opinion that they're now pro-fracking?
Yeah.
Declaring Minnesota to be a trans refuge, with the law saying that the state will ignore A court order for the removal of a child issued in another state because a child's parent or guardian assisted the child in receiving gender-affirming care while in this state. Wow. No wonder Bernie Sanders is a fan. Now the vetting will begin in earnest. Mr. Walz's response to the 2020 riots after the George Floyd killing will be scrutinized, in particular as poor areas in Minneapolis burned and many business owners lost everything. Did he hesitate to send in the troops? Why is Minnesota losing residents to other states? Republicans are circulating remarks by Walz acknowledging what he calls his white privilege and urging his party, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Despite her 4 years as vice president, Ms. Harris is largely unknown to most voters. Democrats want to keep it that way, hoping she can dodge media interviews and ride the theme about the future in a campaign sprint of a mere 100 days. Even though the polls show they do know. they do know this, that she stands for what Biden stands for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The overwhelmingly, the poll,
Right.
the CBS polls showed that. I mean, that wasn't even close. It wasn't like it was 50-50. That was through the roof. And on the two major issues, the economy, inflation, and the border, Trump just destroys her with the public.
Right.
Now, to talk about, we spent 3 weeks. I don't know what started 3 weeks ago when we started talking about the identity politics, which is racism of the Democratic Party and how it's mainstream. My God, now with everything that's gone on over Shapiro and Walz, the time is never better because I'm going to play more of this on CNN. These are three liberals talking, all right? Three liberals talking, including Jake Tapper. And I just love it how Abby Phillips was like, if picking Josh Shapiro would antagonize those voters who voted uncommitted in the Gaza war.
Yeah.
They can't say anti-Semitic. He brings the anti-Semitic stuff into it, but here we go.
And I think ultimately Shapiro, I think fit is important, but I also think that when you look at the principle of do no harm, maybe they did say in a state like Minnesota, do we want to, those 100,000 uncommitted voters who came out about the Gaza war, do we want to antagonize those voters? Those are all part of the questions as well.
So, but can I just say,
Tim Walz also spoke conciliatorily towards those people. He said, look, that uncommitted vote is significant and those people should be heard. So having that kind of response, I think, is probably more of an open door to the parts of the party that have been very frustrated with the Democrats.
So, but just to one point on the Gaza war, Shapiro has the same position on Israel that Governor Walz, that Senator Kelly has. He's actually been more critical of Netanyahu than the other two, but he is Jewish.
He's also the face of the crackdown on the protests, right? He spoke very vehemently about those campus protests as being anti-Semitic.
Not all of them. The ones that were anti-Semitic, he criticized as being anti-Semitic.
But he was out front on the issue. So I'm wondering if that's the kind of thing that, again, for the activist wing of the party,
sure, absolutely,
they felt was a slap in the face.
See, they know. Everybody knows it's the Democratic Party that is racist.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it.
That was CNN.
It's just everybody knows the identity politics and the racism of the Democratic Party. So again, Republican Party, do something about it.
Well,
God,
what's really, I don't know,
because I don't just, by the way, I don't just throw that at Trump quickly here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Republican Party as a whole. Way before Trump, they should have been pounding on identity politics on a consistent message.
We've been doing this for 19 years with the Republicans. You almost literally blew a gasket one of the first nights on the show at Tom DeLay. So yeah, it's not new. And by the way, this is the way you should behave. The party I vote for, the people I vote for, you're not beyond reproach. I don't do the rock star thing. It's public servant time. We want you to win. What you heard, that exchange there, is the landmine dodging, but still having to face reality between all those on that CNN panel. They're telling you the truth, but they're also having to recognize what's going on right now with the radical left, the party that they clearly support. And it is clear to everyone, after October 7th, and I've been saying it since, there is no gray area. There is no common ground. It's radicals and everybody else. You're on one side or the other. Period. And they can't help themselves.
No,
they really can't help themselves at all. And it's playing out over and over and over again. And many things on this program, if not most things, go back to Seinfeld. But even at Seinfeld's live shows this year, you saw the hatred. Of course, Jerry took it in stride and was able to handle it from the stage as they escorted these radicals out of the audience and out of the building. But this is where the radicals are, and they're promoting it. They're protesting for it. They're tearing down American flags at Union Station and putting up the enemy flag. And every single place you go, anywhere you turn in the media, just pick up your phone for a second and you can confirm where those radicals stand.
The racism is more blunt in the Democratic Party than a George Wallace.
Yeah.
Right now.
Oh, yeah.
The racism is so blunt. Everybody knows. And that's the thing, picking Walz, all of a sudden, we knew it was there already, but the discussion is going on between all the liberals about the problem that they have when Van Jones talks about the dark anti-Semitism of the Democratic Party in it, and you can tell he's bothered by it.
Yep.
There's a problem. The Democratic Party is the racist party.
Right.
When they try to tag Trump as a racist, what do they use? Charlottesville.
Which is a lie.
Which is a lie. He never said those things. And when you look at the Democratic Party as a whole, it's across the racism is across the board. We saw when we played last week, right? The days are just running into one another. Okay, this is the Wednesday show, right? It's just the way it is every day. I go home, I go to sleep, I wake up, I start doing show prep, I work out, I do show prep, I eat, I go to sleep, I come in here. It's like,
it's one big day.
It never ends. But I've come up with a new word, a new phrase for the Democrats. You saw it last week when we played the what was it, the white chicks? The white women
for Kamala.
Yeah, the white women for Kamala.
And white dudes for Kamala.
Right, and we brought up the blatant racism.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody some BIPOC person says something, you don't argue with them. You never ever
SpaghettiOs.
SpaghettiOs.
Oh my
you
gosh.
better not correct them on anything.
And J.D. Vance is the weird one.
Right. And that's but I call that, in their minds, that's compassionate racism.
Yeah.
Because you show no respect to anybody, in my opinion. I had this conversation. I told the story about one person last week that was upset, and I had to tell them, look, if I don't respect you, I'm not going to bother with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in my life and I argue with you, it means I have some respect for you. I wish to debate people who I respect. If I don't respect you because I know your goal is not the goal to actually come to the truth, I'm not going to bother with you. You're an idiot.
Right.
And so to discount and say no BIPOC person, that would be black, indigenous, people of color, BIPOC is what they use, the term they use for that, shows the incredible racism that you have. You're basically saying, oh, BIPOC people don't have the ability to be told that they're wrong. They can't handle it. We can because we're privileged. They can't. I mean, the blatant...
We were called upon to do this.
Right, we were called upon to
We've
do
been
this.
anointed.
Well, you want weird, the one guy for the white dudes, whoever he was, who said, I've never seen so many shades of whiteness here.
It's
a rainbow of whiteness.
Of whiteness.
My God, these people are nuts. But when you believe, take 2 points here. When you believe that a male can be a female and that males should define what a woman is, and when you're a racist, when you're truly a racist, because what you're seeing there, what you saw last week, was a lot of guilt. And you and I have talked about the identity politics, and there's a ton of Democrats out there walking around feeling guilty because they are racist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they assume we're racist, because they walk around feeling guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, who the hell says I would never argue with a black person?
Right. If you feel the urge to debate.
Right. If you feel the urge, you're right, don't do it. No, do not ever correct. What are you talking about? How racist? I'll correct anybody. I don't care about your skin color. If you say something that's wrong and we're in the arena of ideas, I'm going to show you the respect that you deserve. Anybody who enters that and is honestly trying to have a debate, I'll respect that by debating you, and I'll tell you you're wrong. Not because I believe in any way you should be subservient to me, but you've got the wrong talking points on an argument, on a debate point, on an issue. That's it. But I sat there and I came up with the term yesterday. I said, oh, the Democrats have compassionate racism. We have compassionate racism. We think you're less of a person than I am based on your race, but we feel for you.
Yeah.
I mean, my God. It's just...
We love the fact that others are inferior to us.
Yes.
I mean, seriously. There's zero self-awareness.
I know. And that's where they are right now, and it shows it right there. And it gets frustrating year after year after year that there isn't... And I don't throw this at Trump at all, because this has been going on, you and I for 19 years. I know I've been a talk show host since 89, and I was talking about this with the attacks on conservative black talk show hosts in the early 90s. So this is blatant racism.
Well, and the one thing that we pointed out with the RNC, with the convention this year, was it was clear there were no establishment Republicans there. The closest you could get on that main stage in prime time was Speaker Mike Johnson, and I don't know that you call him establishment, but that's the closest that you could get. The party had brought up it was clearly a new era on stage at the RNC, which is a good thing. Don't bring the baggage of the old era with you, and that is the refusal to get into it. Don't go down the road of John Boehner. We don't like messy. We love messy, because if you're going to throw mud at me, I'm going to throw it back.
Yeah. By the way, J.D. Vance, he was, I thought, spectacular yesterday in Philadelphia on everything that he answered.
Yeah.
And Mr. Trump, take some points from the guy who's vice president. But he actually asked questions at the rally, and a reporter told him that his remarks on families were offensive to millions of Americans. We'll have his response, which was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
He was right on. He was on an identity politics. He was right on. If you debate correctly, you win the election. If you put out the correct points of what Kamala Harris truly believes and Walz truly believes, the American public will reject them on the issues, and that's how you wish to win.
Yep.
That's how you will win. 866-98-RED-I.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You had J.D. Vance actually take questions at a rally. You ready? Here we go.
Drug cartels bring across that open border. Now, you asked about the remarks that I made that were, you said that they were offensive to millions of women. Well, here's what I'd say. Thank you, ma'am. I love you too. What I said is very simple. I think American families are good and government policy should be more pro-family. Now, if the media wants to get offended about a sarcastic remark I made before I even ran for the United States Senate, then the media is entitled to get offended. You know what I'm offended by? I'm offended that normal Americans can't afford grocery prices. I'm offended that Kamala Harris opened up the American southern border and allowed fentanyl to come into our communities. And I'm offended that she wants to be the people's president, but she won't even answer tough questions. That's what I'm offended by. And I think that's what most Americans are offended by, too. And I get.
There you go. Right on point. Now, what I would add to it, and I'm offended by the anti-Semitism that comes from the racism of the Democratic Party through their identity politics.
Yep.
Add that one in there constantly, over and over and over and over and over again. And I don't know why they don't see the opening. I wonder what their research shows. I'm willing to be open to say their research might show something. I don't know what that would be, though.
Is it one of those that you really have to go all the way and explain it out, and if you can't do that, you don't approach it? That many people will see it as something else? I don't know. It's a good question, though.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you choose. All right. We're going to hear John Nolte, Breitbart. No Jews allowed on the Democratic presidential ticket. Democratic presidential nominee Vice President Kamala Harris had a picture-perfect vice presidential nominee pick with Josh Shapiro, the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania. Shapiro is young, 51 years of age. He's a smooth talker. He is seen as fairly moderate. Above all, he's the popular governor of a state Harris must win. Instead, she chose Governor Tim Walz. And who is Tim Walz? He's an aging radical, open borders socialist with a DUI to his name, a questionable service record, and a man who only became a national figure as the governor who allowed the left-wing terrorists in Black Lives Matter and Antifa to burn down large portions of Minneapolis during the George Floyd riots in 2020. Walz is only 60, but looks 15 years older. Above all, Minnesota is safely in Kamala's column. Do I look younger than him? And Walz?
Stand up. Turn around.
Okay. There you go. I turned around.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, that was uncomfortable.
Yeah. He's only 2 years older than me. Wow. Seriously. He looks much older than 60.
So, John Knowlton, this is what he wrote now. So why did cackly McNever Bordersar
Oh, my gosh. Okay, we have a winner, folks. Good night. Drive safely.
So why did cackly McNever Borderzar go with the aging radical who cannot help deliver a swing state over a young and glib governor who can? There's only one reason. Josh Shapiro is Jewish, and Jews are no longer allowed on the Democratic presidential ticket. We don't need to pussyfoot around this truth. The wretched political party has collapsed upon itself since former Vice President Al Gore chose late U.S. Senator Joe Lieberman, an observant Jew, as his vice presidential nominee in 2004. That was a big deal 24 years ago, something seen as a step forward for this country that just 44 years earlier worried about Catholic John Kennedy. That's all changed. Today, a Jew on the Democrat ticket is a liability for a party where the tail of rabid anti-Semitism wags the dog. If you don't believe me, watch Shapiro debase himself by de-Jewing himself in the hopes of getting picked. By the way, that almost mirrors what Michael Rappaport, the actor, said.
Yeah.
The people raging and rioting against Jews on college campuses and in Democrat-run city streets are not Republicans. They are radical Democrats, and they wag the dog. Case in point, when President Joe Biden thought he would still be allowed to run for re-election, he began to stab Israel in the back solely for political reasons. He feared losing the swing state of Michigan, home to a large Arab population that is not exactly assimilated to America's ideal of religious tolerance. We all know that was blunt. That was, remember how blunt that was?
Yep.
From Democrats talking about that.
Right.
But it's not just the Arabs in Dearborn, Michigan. Young, leftist, radicalized, ridiculously privileged college kids all across the country share the same obscene Jew hatred. And it's not just Jew-Israel hated. These little haters are pro-Hamas, which means pro the barbarians who slaughtered and raped and kidnapped over 1,000 Israeli Jews on October 7th. So in what everyone believes will be another squeaker of a race, Harris could not risk putting a Jew on the ticket. She needs those pro-Hamas votes. She needs those little haters. I want to make this clear that when he says radicalized Democrats, I'll say Democrats.
Yeah.
Because you don't see an outrage. Sorry, Democrats, you came up with it. Silence is violence.
No, this is exactly what we've been talking about. If there were outrage and you saw this clear division in the party and people looking, other Democrats, rank and file, looking to separate themselves from these radicals, that would be one thing. We don't see any of that.
Could you imagine if it was reversed? If it was Republicans that had this type of blunt racism in their party, where it was a discussion every night on the 24/7 news channels about the racism of the Republicans, which was absolutely blunt, and not just, one person saying a racial slur, but an entire 35 years of identity politics. As we said, identity politics, judging people by a group, simply went to hating Jews. That's all it did. It wasn't a huge step for Democrats because they've been practicing identity politics, judging people by groups and not individuals for 35 years now.
Yep.
They simply went, we can hate Jews too.
Yep.
And it's really amazing. And the whole thing, I mean, Michael Rappaport talked about Shapiro and the de-Jewing of Shapiro, who always held another opinion, and all of a sudden, boom, when he was put on put on the possible list, all of a sudden, Israel and Netanyahu not good.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's what I'm amazed at how blunt it is, yet Democrats aren't outraged. And remember, this is the Democrats that in the late 60s, even the early 70s, were starting to come around. I mean, they were the racist party all before that, going all the way back to the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
They were the ones that promoted slavery and Jim Crow, as we know.
Right.
And now they're back to it again. And the silence of most Democrats and the acceptance of identity politics, which goes right along with, the radical transgender movement, where men get to define the definition of women. This stuff is insane.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's absolutely insane. The Neanderthals in this society right now, in our American society, and it's mainstreamed in the Democratic Party. The misogyny and the racism that exist and are institutionalized and systemic in this country is found right inside the Democratic Party. And it's mainstream now because the presidential ticket must acknowledge the racism in order, they believe, to win an American election. And to the guy who gets upset about it, you guys are saying that every 5 seconds. He's told, tell me where I'm wrong. Tell us where we're wrong.
Yeah.
And everything that you see, whether it's the women, the white women, for God's sakes, the white women for Harris, the white dudes for Harris, all that is based on you see what they were saying. All that's based on their guilt. They feel guilty because they're the racist. Then they feel guilt because of their racism. That's why they
think
talk
about the
that
idea
way.
of putting together a campaign like that. White women for Kamala, white dudes for Kamala. Because what did they do a few days later? Republicans for Kamala. They're trying to build this so if you separate the two, white women and white dudes for Kamala, their thought was, well, white people don't vote for women of color, so we need to conjure up some white people here that would support us. That's a racist approach to begin with.
Yeah, it's all racism.
And they followed through with it. By the way, she's the one that came out and said, remember, December 3rd, 2019, her campaign failed. It fizzled. It was over. She was out. She didn't even make it to 2020 as a candidate and blamed racism.
Yeah, of the Democratic Party.
And that whole time was like, well, yeah, you're blaming your own party for the racism.
We made note of that when that happened. We said, well, it can't be Republicans.
They're so obsessed with it because it's how they think.
Yeah.
Everything is about identity. Where are the ideas? Where are they?
None. And that's the amazing thing that
they have to run from their. By the way, they have to run from their own beliefs. They have to lie about what they believe. Yeah. She wants you to believe she's pro-fracking and she's stronger on the border than Donald Trump. And as you asked earlier, and I think it's a great question, what is Walz going to do now? Does he have to turn around and be pro-fracking and an anti-open border? Got to get in line.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, we'll ask the question, why did Cackly McNever Bordersar do what she did? I'm sorry, but John Nolte writing that was so damn funny. Oh, my gosh.
That is so good.
Let me play this audio cut, though, because this shows you wonder, where are they going to go? And this is Josh Shapiro last night speaking before Harrison Walz got up there. And this shows you again the evil perversion inside the Democrat Party. The Josh Shapiro may have, for example, in the past promoted things to get elected and done things to get elected, but they really don't believe it. They're radical and evil. Here it is. This is Shapiro right now.
It's not freedom to tell our children what books they're allowed to read. That's not freedom. It's not.
So not even lying anymore where they'd say the Republicans want to ban books, which it makes it sound like the Republicans want to ban books from adults, but age-appropriate materials for youngsters, they're against now.
Yeah, how dare you have an age requirement for adult bookstores?
Right. Sexually explicit, right? So should a kid be able to go in and get a penthouse in elementary school?
Right.
Does it even exist anymore? I don't even know.
I don't know if they're still even around. I don't even know. We may sound so outdated right now. It's like,
well, I just always had an interest because they always,
all the girly mags and whatnot.
I was always interested in the concept of it because they always used to print my stories.
Yeah, exactly. All of the stories. Such great literature.
I read it for the articles.
Exactly. But we've seen it. We saw it play out at the one school board meeting where the parent is reading from the book that's on the shelf for the kids to get in the library, but they had to shut her down, quit reading from the book. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Right. It wasn't.
Why are you trying to discriminate and keep this from children and families that are here?
I mean, you think about the damage that he did just there, and then as Michael Rappaport and others have come up with, de-Jewing himself.
Right. Yeah.
Think about the thing. They don't have any morals about anything. They care about power. But Josh Shapiro advocating pornography for young kids.
Yeah.
And parents shouldn't be able to stop that.
Right.
Wow. These people are perverts.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. To show how bad racism is in the Democratic Party, how institutionalized and systemic it is, one only has to look at the Cori Bush race in Missouri.
Yeah.
Now, she lost by 6 points, roughly around 6 points, 5.5 to 6 points. I'm sure since the Democratic primary, we won't have the full results until next year at this time.
Exactly.
But who she ran against was a St. Louis prosecutor, Wesley Bell. And you had a pro-Israel PAC put $9 million into that race and go after her. You know, I'm reading this from NBC News. This is how racist of a party they are. Cori Bush focused her closing argument in the primary election against Bell about his failure to bring charges against the police officer who killed 18-year-old Michael Brown in 2014, featuring Brown's father in her final ad of the race. The fallout from Brown's killing propelled both Bush's and Bell's careers. Bell, a prosecutor focused on police reform. Bush, a Black Lives Matter activist. So we know we live in the bubble of today. What happened in that case? There probably is not a clearer case that exonerated a police officer than that case.
On multiple levels.
On multiple levels, yeah.
From the DOJ at the time to
Obama's Department of Justice.
Mm-hmm. Led by Eric Holder.
Yes.
And the family commissioned autopsy, which disproved the whole hands up, don't shoot thing. Yet they kept it up.
Yeah.
The left kept it up, but it was disproven by the family commissioned autopsy. And the evidence over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. And so Bush focused, the only thing she had left, her anti-Semitism wasn't working, so let's go to another form of racism.
Mm-hmm.
Let's tell a lie that was disproved by the Obama Department of Justice under Eric Holder and the family's own autopsy results. We know what happened. We know Michael Brown was the perpetrator. Michael Brown was the criminal. Michael Brown was attempting to kill a cop. And Cori Bush is telling a lie in order to make people of different skin colors hate each other based on a lie. That's how institutionalized and systemic racism is in the Democratic Party. She still got almost 46% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's the racism that is mainstream inside the Democratic Party of today.
Pretty clear.
Wow.
It's out there. It's playing out every single day. There are multiple examples every day.
Now, the squad, as we're now calling a fire team, because they're losing so many members, I guess I was looking at the military definition of a squad. 2 or 3 fire teams make up a squad. So since they're not large enough to be a squad anymore, they're a fire team.
Pretty soon there'll be a duo or solo. The solo.
But I want to play what I played before, and this is whether Kamala Harris is going to be able to try to do all the flip-flops that she's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, as we know, and this goes all the way back, this goes back to Disney and Governor DeSantis, when the legislature passed that only age-appropriate materials, for children, which parents agree with. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
You don't let your children watch pornography.
Yep.
You don't let your 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old watch an extremely violent movie. You censor them all the time. You do that for children because they can't handle a lot of this stuff at that age. They're not interested in it. But the fact is, what Democrats are trying to brainwash them on the whole transgender ideology, get the kids young and tell the kids very young that they can be whatever sex they want to be. How perverted is that? Understand, this is Josh Shapiro, who did not get it, being very blunt. The Democrats want young kids to be brainwashed with sexual content, sexual material, sexually explicit materials. Here he is at the rally last night.
It's not freedom to tell our children what books they're allowed to read. That's not freedom.
Listen to the cheers. This is how perverted the Democratic Party is today. This is how filthy and perverted they are.
I guess they were handing out X-rated books while they were there, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you brought up the
Calling it freedom.
You brought up the great point. How many of these Board of Education meetings have parents gone to and they start reading from the book that's in the library that they object to?
They get shut down.
And they get shut down and they get escorted from the place by police officers because Democrat adults can't listen to it, but they want it for the children.
Right.
This is how perverted, this is how, again, this shows the true colors of Josh Shapiro.
Well, and it's also in line with where they are, and a few of the Democrats have, a number of the Democrats have said this over the years recently, that parents have no place in the classroom because, they'll escort you out if you try and read from the book at a meeting, at a public meeting. How dare you get into the indoctrination game? We'll do that while you're not here.
Yeah, exactly.
What we're offended by is you being here while we indoctrinate your child.
Yeah.
Kids, Swalwell said it. Parents have no place in their kids' classroom.
This is how filthy and perverted the mainstream of the Democratic Party has become. Because is there anybody who's considered more mainstream than Josh Shapiro?
No.
But it also shows the things that he promotes. Does he really believe them? When he's flip-flopped on Israel and now advocating sexually explicit content for children.
Right. They should be able to walk into an adult bookstore.
Yeah.
How dare you? There should be no ratings guide on movies.
Nope.
Because if it's in books, then it should be movies too. Why would you try and censor? This is censorship. Because the difference is we need this in the classrooms where the parents are not around.
Well, as we know, Kamala Harris wouldn't even say it that way. She was saying Republicans want to ban books.
Right.
Implies, she said a couple of weeks ago,
right.
which implied that Republicans want adults to be banned. That adults, there should be banned material for adults,
right.
Which again was not the case because they're talking about Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about Florida and all about DeSantis, which you saw landslide numbers in Florida agreeing with DeSantis and against Disney.
Yep.
And against that perverted movement led by Democrats in the state of Florida.
This is the war against the parents. They pretend like they're taking on the Republicans. The fact of the matter is they're taking on the parents. That includes you if you have children in public schools.
But listen to the cheers. This isn't just the politicians. You heard the cheers.
Yep.
Cheers. Let our children see sexually explicit material. Parents have no control over their children. Children have complete freedom. And if you don't give children complete freedom, then somehow you're immoral.
In fact, we'll deem that abusive.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, we'll deem that abusive. And so this isn't, they start talking, the racism, the perverted ideas of the Democrats, the reprehensible way that they wish to brainwash and terrify children knows no limit or bounds. This isn't that's just one guy. This is Josh Shapiro, who people thought was going to be the vice presidential candidate, endorsing the ticket and not hiding anymore, as even Kamala Harris was a couple of weeks ago, by lying that Republicans wish to ban books, implying they want to ban them for adults, which wasn't the case. And he just comes right out blunt now. So how middle of the road are they going to be now if Shapiro has the go-ahead at the rally to introduce the entire ticket, tells the world and the country that the Democrat position is children should be able to see any type of sexually explicit content, otherwise they're not free, and that's immoral.
Parents have no say-so.
What a bunch of perverts. What a bunch of filthy perverts these people are, and it's the mainstream of the Democratic Party. It's not fringe, it's mainstream.
And J.D. Vance is the weird one.
Yeah. Yeah,
They want you out of the picture if you're a parent, especially if you disagree. You have no place in the children's classroom. Now you have no say-so over their surgery to mutilate their own body. This is who they are. They're proudly promoting it at rallies. They're promoting it.
I really wonder whether they're going to go the other way.
I don't know. I was about to say, what's going to be on stage at the DNC?
Yeah, because they're not hiding it.
This is
they're perverted. Their perversions
cameras were right there.
Right.
We brought you the audio. They're promoting it proudly. Listen, I said earlier that Walz, to me, that's a Kamala pick. This is a radical who has no self-awareness whatsoever. She is absolutely clueless.
It also makes me believe she picked him because he's loud.
Mm-hmm.
He can be very loud,
Mm-hmm.
and she wants him as the person out there. And I originally thought that this was the campaign telling her not to talk. I think she's scared to talk. I think she's scared to take questions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe this is a Biden kind of thing where where his close aides are telling him not to do it. I think she's scared to debate, which is why
which would be in line with me saying that and my thought on this, in that he's totally a Kamala pick and really not the DNC pick. This is her decision to pick Walz, so that would be right in line with that. Let me get the guy who's going to get up there and do all the speaking, because she's afraid to talk. She's in over her head, and she knows it.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The show continues during the breaks here. We're just asking the question based on, number one, her Kamala Harris's pick of Tim Walz, and what the audio we were playing there of Josh Shapiro, and the perverted narrative that Democrats now are putting out there, where they're not lying about it, where they were stating before that the Republicans want to ban books. She may go back to that again because they may view what Shapiro said last night, that children shouldn't be censored at all for any type of materials out there. And the vast majority of people in the United States do believe that there should be age-sensitive, materials, sensitive rules and regulations for what children can see. And Shapiro was blunt in his perverted, and it's absolute perversion to say, I can't believe that he said that. I can see him reversing himself on Israel and jumping on the pro-Hamas thing, because that's in for Democrats to do stuff like that, trying to ride that fine line. Well, I'm not pro-Hamas. I'm just pro the people of Gaza. Shut up. Yeah, there, as you said, day one, there are no two sides of this. There's only one side. But you and I were talking about the fact of, with the pick of Walz, with Shapiro saying that, not picking Kelly. You think about, if you're going to try to make the case that you want to be stricter on the border, you might have picked Kelly.
Yeah, I was telling you during the break that if you want to, because you can, if she's Clearly, she's turned it around, or her campaign has turned it around because she wants people to believe she's stronger on the border than Donald Trump, and that's laughable. But if you want to go down that road, then Mark Kelly would have also been a smart pick there because of the state of Arizona and the fact that he was quiet during a lot of things that the Biden administration was doing. There's a lot of stuff to pick apart with Mark Kelly, except for the fact that, first of all, Arizona is up in play. Minnesota's not up in play. But Mark Kelly would have been the pick if you're if you're going for more of the mainstream and trying to get independents on board. Walz was totally a Kamala Harris pick. It is the radical, somebody who is clearly living in the bubble, but also clueless and doesn't really care. This is going to be, and as you pointed out a few times, this is the most radical ticket that we've ever seen in America.
Oh, in American history, by far. Yeah.
And
it's the first completely, well, Biden wasn't when he was running because he was trying to run as a moderate in his long history and everything else of the flip-flopping on the crime bill and everything else.
Right.
He had a history where people, you could at least make the argument. You can't even make the argument for Kamala Harris or Walz at all.
No.
You can't make that. Well, at one time they were, that they had more centrist views. By the way, I do see that. I was going through social media, and it was like, well, Republicans are scared because this is the centrist ticket for Democrats. It's like,
no.
Wow, if you think that's a centrist ticket for Democrats, that just shows how insanely left the Democratic Party has gone.
Right. Yeah, not even close.
You can't
to
make
the center.
that. No. I mean, that's the whole. They're just scared of the centrist candidate.
Yeah, no.
And I just,
no.
He wears baseball caps and jeans and work clothes.
Yeah.
I don't care what he wears. That's, again, identity. I don't care if he wears nothing. I care. Well,
Yeah. Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, the one that Ben Shapiro, as you mentioned, Ben Shapiro put on Twitter, and it shows with the mask on, and it's when he was heavier.
Yeah, he was heavier. And so his belly's hanging out a bit. It looks very Chris Farley-ish. And Ben Shapiro, our friend and colleague, put that Tim Walz lives in a van down by the river.
Call and join the conversation. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We're just asking the question: Will the ticket of Harris and Walz actually be able to move to the center? Now we know the campaign moved to the center. Harris hasn't herself because she didn't say these things. The campaign said it. And
Right.
you and I both said, is she looking for plausible deniability to see whether people buy it or not? And then when she's actually finally goes out and does an interview and is asked a question, are you actually pro-fracking? She'll say, well, no, my campaign got that wrong.
Yeah.
Because, and I base this on what Josh Shapiro said before they went on, before Harris and Walz got up to the podium last night, because this is the first time that I saw that on this level, the Democrats didn't lie about the issue. They didn't. They were actually honest about the issue. They don't believe that any child should be limited to age appropriate, non-sexually explicit books.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have had a discussion in the last half hour. We've all seen there's been a number of cases in these schools where parents have said, I want to read you what's in this book. And they've had the police drag them away.
Yep.
They said, wait a minute, no, I'm going to read the book. It's okay for the kids. Sorry, we cannot have that type of crude content and pornographic content, being read at a school board meeting. But you'll let the kids read it.
Right.
So these are
okay.
Right. So these are Democrats. These are all Democrats on these boards that are doing it. They're not Republicans.
No.
And then they're offended by what they want children to read that they find so offensive that you can't read it at a public meeting to discuss the policy of the Board of Education.
Right.
And so here's what Josh Shapiro said. Just we can hear it. Here we go.
It's not freedom to tell our children what books they're allowed to read. That's not freedom.
And look at the people cheering behind it. This is how perverted this party is, how morally bankrupt they are, how racist. We know the racism, the identity politics, the racism, the anti-Semitism, the Jewish hatred. All the worst characteristics of human beings are now based right there in the Democratic Party.
Yep.
And that's not over the I'm not trying to do. I've never done. You worked with me for the longest time. The last thing we've ever tried to do is be over the top and exaggerate a point.
Listen, our 1.2 billion listeners know that we do not engage in hyperbole.
Right, exactly. But Shapiro was absolutely blunt that there should be no age-appropriate materials in schools. Children should be able to see whatever the perverts want them to see.
Yeah.
Because and this battle was already fought, and they lost miserably in the polls and everything. So if something that is as highly choreographed as this, he didn't say which was the favored way, Republicans are trying to ban books.
Yeah.
And you just leave it at that. You don't explain it. And the average person that's not paying attention says, my God, Republicans want to ban books from adults? Or they want to, well, what is this what that Christian nationalism is? They want to ban all books except Christian books for adults? I mean, it gets into that type of over-the-top and ridiculous rhetoric.
I've been wondering, though, for pretty much the entire year. Actually, I think we could go back to last year. What day is it? Seriously, what month is it? What year are we in? It's just one big, long day. By the way, it is every single day when we do this. You and I see it. We get excited. We know that members in our audience, we see people on social media and everything else getting excited about it because they're passionate about these issues. This is why there has been for years frustration with the Republican Party in getting it together in messaging. These right now, we've said this before, but seriously, there is no way you can make the case against the following. There has never been an easier time to put ads together, in their own words, ever. You've got the money. I know you've got, heck, I don't know how many people out there would even volunteer to help put the ads together. In fact, a lot of people on social media are already doing it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they are.
They're putting it out there. They're putting those moments, they're putting those videos out there and sharing them on social media. So you've got to stay engaged and stay focused, and that's what we want for the Republican Party. We want them to win. You see right now, I've been asking for certainly a year. What is it going to be like on stage by the time we get to the convention for the Democrats? What are they going to be promoting? The radicals aren't 3 blocks away protesting outside. They're on the stage during prime time giving speeches. Do you try and hide it?
Well, you also had, for example, you had them out there yesterday, Kamala Harris and Walz talking about the fact that do you want to live in basically under an economy that Trump had, and the mess on the border. They were throwing stuff out that were their weaknesses, believing that if they attacked Trump, because we know. The polls show, the CBS poll this last week, which was just landslide numbers for Trump over Kamala Harris on the border and on the economy. And so they're out there saying that trying to convince people the economy will be much better under a Kamala Harris and has been much better under Biden. Well, you can't make that case.
Right.
And I will say this, immediately you got the response. Even before that yesterday, because this is 12 hours ago. So before they actually spoke on that and started attacking it, this is an ad from the Trump campaign. All right. Here, and by the way, you may not think it's an ad from the Trump campaign. You may be flashing back 44 years.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Please welcome President Ronald Reagan, who has a few questions for you.
All of you will go to the polls, will stand there in the polling place and make a decision. I think when you make that decision, it might be well if you would ask yourself, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
By the way, it says income's falling 3 years in a row. That's from, but I just want to give people a little bit of the context of what they're not seeing here. Here we go.
Is it easier for you to go and buy things in the stores than it was 4 years ago?
And then written up there, it says grocery prices 30% higher. Okay.
There more or less unemployment in the country than there was 4 years ago? Is America as respected throughout the world as it was? Do you feel that our security is as safe, that we're as strong as we were 4 years ago? If you don't think that this course that we've been on for the last 4 years is what you would like to see us follow for the next 4, then I could suggest another choice that you have.
President Trump. He'll make America great again.
They'll be using that a lot because I can imagine that tomorrow they're saying that the Biden economy is as good as our economy was.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they can make fun of that one.
Right.
Because the American public, they're trying to, I don't know if it's, if they've sat there and said, okay, Karine Jean-Pierre, you've got two things now. You're still going to be Biden's spokesperson, but you're going to be writing our speeches for us. And so you need to be telling the people that, what do you have for us today? Oh, the economy has been so much better under Biden-Harris. Well, they've tried to sell that. It's failed miserably. And that's the thing. When you look at this, both campaigns right now, where we are on August 7th, it's that every single major issue that the public views as extremely important in their life has landslide numbers in favor of Trump.
Yeah.
That's it. Whatever the polls say, we'll start deciding that when they, will get a reality of where they really are probably by mid-September, as everybody can digest and the Republicans do whatever they can do to fully vet Harris. Because Walz, you can make a lot of stuff on it. If he's out there promoting the far left agenda, you can use him a lot more. But the actual vetting for him will probably be gone by next Monday as it focuses on Harris again.
Right.
Now, he'll be a part of it, and they'll include him a part of it.
And it depends, too, on how much she's going to use him to do all the talking.
I thought I made that clear, but maybe I didn't.
Yeah, so that is the entire, equation here and I do believe he's going to be the face certainly this weekend, if not for the next week or two. And the media is going to be, and of course, you'll hear the excuse, I'm waiting for this. Well, she's also currently the vice president and has other duties. So he'll be doing a little more campaigning than she will because he will have a little more time. I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, but that could cause trouble because he is known for promoting the insanity that he believes in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And
the more you put him out there, the worse it is for both of them.
And when I saw, like I said, that's why Shapiro, that's why I played it 3 times in the last 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Because that's key to the fact that they're not afraid to go wacko left. Because that's wacko left as they're announcing their Democrat ticket last night, right before they announce it, Shapiro's on talking about the fact that, sexually explicit content for children, Republicans don't want it. They're not for freedom for children. Everybody knows that's a completely bogus argument. Age-appropriate material is something that 99.9% of parents agree with.
Yep.
And so it shows, are they in that bubble where now they're in that bubble of radical liberalism? And the Walz pick showed it because they just couldn't pick Shapiro because he's Jewish.
Right.
And as a good Democrat today, you have to hate Jews. That's where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mainstream now. I can say mainstream because they didn't pick Shapiro. And people like, what's his name? Vance.
Mm.
Can't think of his first name.
JD?
No. No, I'm talking about Van Jones.
Mm.
I'm sorry, Van. There's a VAN in there. Van Jones on there talking about the dark anti-Semitism of the party. Is that why they did it? You could tell he was talking very somber on CNN. It was all over the place.
Yeah.
The anti-Semitism of the Democrats, the Jewish hatred of the Democrats.
Well, and they know in the media. Because the media, here's the thing. They want to carry the water for the left. But you carry the water to who? Well, it's CNN. It's your viewing audience. So you come off as radical if you're trying to carry the water of this anti-Semitism. You're the one that gets the pushback on this. You have to own it if you're going to do that. And what we saw yesterday is a number of them in the liberal media point out what's going on. Well, that right there is pretty telling as to where they are because they're having to address it, by the way, with their audience. There is no doubt.
And with Shapiro, again, talking about the perversion that the Democrats believe that children should be able to see sexually explicit content, and he promotes it at that time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way they didn't vet what he was going to say before he went on.
No, you know what? What flashed in my mind? Was this him because he didn't get the pick and he's angry? He just comes out there and throws out something radical and they didn't know he was going to say it? I don't think that's the case, but that flashed in my mind. But no, you're right. They know what he's going to say.
They didn't pick any. That's a topic that they are obsessed with.
Yep.
That children, we need to pervert the minds of children.
Yep.
And we need to get this out. The bigger the audience, the better. They believe it's a winning issue. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'll say this. If Trump can campaign like J.D. Vance did yesterday, they win. I have never seen as much fury from Republicans at Trump on social media than not over the identity politics thing, but the Brian Kemp thing in Georgia. Republicans want to win.
Yeah.
They just don't want to shout. They want to win. There's a lot of anger at Trump for doing that because they believe it hurts the possible win in November.
And you would think, look, we're almost there. It's a given. Yeah. You can win on the issues. Don't do a misstep like that.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.